When you look at the state of the modern world, there's this undeniable shift happening. A shift that most people didn't see coming, but it's hitting with such force that it's impossible to ignore anymore. Everywhere you turn, in conversations, in documentaries, on social media, in private lives, and even in the public square, you see it. People are gravitating toward Islam in numbers that are absolutely staggering. And we're not just talking about small communities or fringe groups. We're talking about billions of people who identify with Islam and millions more every single year who are embracing it. What's crazy is that this isn't just happening in Muslim majority countries. It's unfolding in places that you'd never expect: Europe, North America, South America, Australia. The momentum is undeniable, and it raises the question, why? What's driving this global acceptance of Islam at such a scale that it's reshaping the cultural and spiritual landscape of humanity? To really break this down, you have to strip away all the noise, all the misconceptions, and all the propaganda that's been built around Islam over the past few decades. For years, the mainstream conversation about Islam in the West was shaped through the lens of conflict, through the headlines of war, or through the spotlight on extremism. But here's the reality: when you actually cut through that narrative and look at Islam in its raw, unfiltered form, what people are discovering is something deeply profound, something incredibly appealing in a world that feels like it's losing its anchor. People are drowning in materialism, overwhelmed by the chaos of modern life, struggling with mental health, and searching for meaning. And what they find in Islam is not just a religion, but a structure, a lifestyle, a way of thinking that provides clarity in a world that thrives on confusion. One of the biggest reasons Islam is resonating with billions is its uncompromising simplicity in its core message. There is one God, a creator who designed everything with purpose, and our job as human beings is to live in alignment with that purpose. It cuts through the noise of philosophical debates, the endless distractions of modern life, and the confusion of moral relativism. In a society where truth has become subjective, Islam stands as this rock-solid foundation that says, truth is absolute, morality has boundaries, and life has meaning. That's an incredibly powerful message in a time where people feel lost. And it's not just about believing in God. It's about structure, discipline, and the kind of spiritual training that forces a person to rise above the chaos of their lower self. Think about the practices that Islam demands: prayer 5 times a day, fasting during Ramadan, giving to charity, maintaining discipline in diet, avoiding harmful substances. To someone on the outside, that might look restrictive. But here's the kicker: when people actually step into it, they realize those so-called restrictions are actually the exact tools they need to break free from the modern prison of addictions, consumerism, and endless distractions. The prayer isn't just ritual, it's a pause from the madness, a reconnection with the source. The fasting isn't just hunger, it's mastery over your desires. The charity isn't just giving, it's detachment from greed and ego. People are realizing that what looks like rules from the outside are actually tools for liberation. That's one of the reasons why so many are converting. It gives them back control over themselves in a world that's constantly trying to strip it away. Another dimension to this is the sense of community. The modern West is fragmented. People feel isolated, disconnected from their neighbors, cut off from deeper human connections. In Islam, the sense of brotherhood and sisterhood is so tangible, it's electric. You walk into a mosque and you're shoulder to shoulder with people of every race, every background, every class, and none of it matters. What matters is the unity of purpose, the worship of one God. That kind of connection, that sense of belonging, is something people are starving for in a individualistic society. And when they see it, when they feel it, they can't deny its pull. It's like water to a thirsty soul. And let's not ignore this: people are drawn to the unshakable confidence that Islam gives its followers. In a world where everything feels uncertain, where identities are fragile, where morality is constantly shifting, Muslims stand with this almost unbreakable sense of certainty. They know who they are, they know what their values are, and they're not afraid to live by them. That kind of conviction is rare today, and it's magnetic. People look at it and think, that's what I'm missing. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. And clarity in today's world is revolutionary. But perhaps the most powerful driver is the intellectual side of Islam. People assume faith is blind, that it's something you just accept without thought. But Islam invites questioning, it encourages reflection, it pushes you to engage your intellect. The Quran repeatedly calls on humanity to think, to observe, to analyze the universe, and recognize the signs of its creator. For scientists, philosophers, and seekers, that's deeply compelling. It doesn't demand you to shut down your brain, it demands you to elevate it, to use it at its highest level. That balance between faith and reason is something that resonates strongly, especially for people who have been burned by dogma that ask them to stop questioning. All of this is creating a snowball effect. Someone converts, they share their story, people around them see the transformation, how they've become calmer, more disciplined, more centered, and that sparks curiosity. One story becomes 100, 100 becomes thousands, and before long you have this global phenomenon of Islam spreading in places it was once seen as foreign or even threatening. The narrative is changing, and people are realizing the truth about this faith in ways that were almost unimaginable a generation ago. And that brings us to this bigger picture. Islam is not just growing, it's thriving in the exact environments where it was expected to struggle. That's a sign worth paying attention to. Because when something grows in hostile soil, it means its roots are deeper than anyone realized. When you begin peeling back the layers of why people are gravitating toward Islam in this era of modern chaos, you realize it's not just about the rituals, the sense of community, or the intellectual foundation. It goes even deeper into the moral framework and the clarity it brings in a world that seems to have abandoned all sense of right and wrong. People today are living in societies where everything is up for debate, where morality shifts depending on cultural trends, where truth itself feels like it's constantly being rewritten. And in the middle of that confusion, Islam stands tall with a framework of values that hasn't shifted in over 1400 years. That stability, that immovable foundation, is like a lighthouse in a storm. It's guiding people who are sick of living in a moral free-fall. One of the biggest attractions here is the way Islam deals with human nature. It doesn't deny who we are as beings. It acknowledges our desires, our struggles, our flaws, but it puts them in perspective. Modern culture tells you to indulge in every desire, to chase every pleasure, to glorify the self above all else. But the result of that is obvious: depression, emptiness, addiction, broken relationships. Islam, on the other hand, teaches balance. It tells you that desires are natural, but they must be managed, controlled, and directed in ways that benefit you and society. That's why you find such strict guidelines on things like alcohol, drugs, sexuality, and even business dealings. To outsiders, those rules may seem restrictive, but to someone searching for peace, they're liberating. Because deep down, people are realizing that absolute freedom without discipline doesn't lead to happiness, it leads to destruction. Islam flips the script by saying true freedom is in mastering yourself, not in being a slave to your impulses. And then there's the way Islam confronts questions of purpose. Every single person, whether they admit it or not, wrestles with the question, why am I here? Modern society tries to answer that with careers, with fame, with money, with distractions. But when people achieve those things, they often find they're still empty. Islam cuts right through that existential fog by saying, you're here to worship the Creator, to live with purpose, to prepare for a life beyond this one. That concept of accountability, that every action matters, that there's a day of judgment where you'll stand and answer for how you lived, that's heavy. But it's also freeing because it gives weight to life, it gives meaning to suffering, it gives direction to success. People who have felt aimless suddenly feel anchored, and that's powerful. Another factor that can't be ignored is how Islam defines family and community. In the modern world, family structures are collapsing, relationships are shallow, and loneliness has become a global epidemic. Islam places immense value on family, on respect for parents, on raising children with values, on loyalty between spouses. For many people, especially in the West, that feels like a return to something they lost. They look at Muslim families, at the respect between generations, at the strength of those bonds, and they're drawn to it. They see a system that doesn't just prioritize the individual, but builds an entire society around responsibility, connection, and love. And in a culture that's obsessed with self, that focus on family and community feels like a lifeline. There's also the global dimension. Islam doesn't belong to one race, one region, or one class. It's universal. It's as much for a farmer in Africa as it is for a scientist in Europe, as much for a billionaire in Dubai as it is for a struggling worker in Detroit. That universality speaks to people, because deep down, we all want something that connects us beyond artificial boundaries. And when people walk into a mosque and see an African man, an Asian man, an Arab, a European, all bowing side by side to the same God, it's undeniable. That vision of equality, of unity, it's not just symbolic, it's lived reality. And in a world torn apart by racism, division, and inequality, Islam's ability to dissolve those barriers is incredibly appealing. Now, what's fascinating is how Islam provides not just spiritual answers, but practical solutions to modern problems. Look at the financial system, for example. The global economy is drowning in debt, in exploitation, in interest that traps people for life. Islam's ban on interest and its emphasis on fair trade and ethical business gives people a system that feels honest, that feels sustainable. Or take mental health. Modern therapy often emphasizes mindfulness, discipline, routine, all of which are embedded in Islamic practices. 5. Daily prayers, fasting, charity. All of these act as built-in psychological tools that regulate the mind and bring balance. People suffering from anxiety or depression are finding relief not just spiritually, but practically in the structure of Islam. That's not an accident, it's by design, and then there's the Quran itself. For many converts, the journey begins when they read it. It's not just a book of rituals, it's a book of guidance, filled with reflections on nature, on the human soul, on history, on morality. What shocks people is how relevant it feels, despite being revealed over a millennium ago. They find verses that speak directly to modern problems, verses that seem to pierce their hearts with clarity. And when they see how Muslims memorize it, how it's preserved word for word, letter for letter, across the globe, that authenticity hits hard. In a world of manipulated media and misinformation, the Quran stands as something untouched, unaltered, unbreakable. That's one of the reasons it's often the final push for someone considering Islam. It's not just the religion, it's the source of it that feels undeniably divine. We also can't overlook the role of crises. When people hit rock bottom, when they lose loved ones, when they face sickness, when their world collapses, they start searching for answers. And Islam offers not just comfort, but perspective. It tells you suffering has meaning, that trials are a test, that patience has reward, and that nothing happens without purpose. For someone broken by life, that message isn't just appealing, it's transformative. It's why so many prison conversions happen, why people battling addiction find Islam, why those who have lost everything suddenly gain strength through it. Islam meets people at their lowest and lifts them up. And this isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. The digital age, which many thought would weaken religion, is ironically fueling Islam's spread. People are hearing the call to prayer online, watching debates, listening to personal stories of converts, engaging with scholars directly. Information that was once hidden or distorted is now accessible to anyone with a phone. And once people engage with it honestly, without bias, they often find themselves shocked at how much sense it makes. That accessibility is turning curiosity into conviction at an unprecedented rate. So when you add all this up, the stability of values, the sense of purpose, the strength of family, the universal brotherhood, the practical solutions, the unaltered scripture, the guidance through suffering, you realize Islam isn't just another religion competing for attention. It's becoming, for billions, the ultimate answer in a world of questions. It's the clarity in the fog, the anchor in the storm, the compass in the wilderness. When you step back and look at the broader picture, it becomes clear that Islam's rise isn't just a matter of individual conversions or personal spiritual awakenings. What we're witnessing is a civilizational shift, a realignment of values that has the potential to reshape the entire trajectory of humanity in the coming decades. This isn't just about religion anymore. It's about how billions of people are reorganizing their lives, their communities, and their societies around a set of principles that directly challenge the dominant narratives of modern culture. And that's why it's becoming impossible to ignore. The modern world is built on a foundation of hyper-individualism, consumerism, and secularism. These ideas promised freedom, progress, and happiness. But what have we actually gotten? Rising rates of anxiety and depression, loneliness at epidemic levels, families falling apart, economic systems that trap people in endless debt, and societies that feel increasingly fragmented. The promise of modernity has left people spiritually bankrupt, and into that void steps Islam, a system that doesn't just critique the failures of modern life, but offers a complete alternative. That's why it's so threatening to some and so attractive to others. It's not just another lifestyle choice, it's a paradigm shift. Take morality, for example. Modern culture says morality is subjective. What's right for you might not be right for me, and everything is negotiable. But Islam says morality is rooted in divine guidance. It's objective, it's non-negotiable. That's a direct challenge to the relativism of today. And people are realizing that relativism doesn't work. If everything is subjective, then nothing really matters. You can't build a stable society on shifting sand. Islam offers a framework that's consistent, clear, and timeless. For someone tired of the constant moral flopping of modern culture, that's refreshing. It's like finding solid ground after years of walking on quicks. And then there's the question of power. Western culture has tried to export its values across the globe, pushing a model of secular liberalism as the only path to progress. But what's happening now is fascinating. People aren't just resisting that model, they're replacing it with Islam. From the grassroots level of individual conversions to the larger societal structures in Muslim majority countries, there's a growing sense that Islam offers not just personal peace, but political and cultural strength. And that strength terrifies those who built their dominance on the assumption that faith was fading. Instead of dying out, Islam is growing stronger than ever, and it's doing so not in isolation, but right in the heart of the modern world. And look at the youth, this might be the most surprising element of all. The younger generation, the ones raised in the age of smartphones, streaming platforms, and constant entertainment, they're not running away from Islam. Many of them are running toward it. Why? Because they're the ones most affected by the emptiness of modern culture. They've grown up seeing the side effects of limitless freedom, unrestrained indulgence, and unchecked materialism. And when they encounter Islam with its discipline, its clarity, its sense of direction, it resonates. Young men and women are realizing that strength doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from having the discipline to do what's right. And Islam provides that strength in a way no other system does. Now, let's be real, none of this is happening in a vacuum. Islam's rise is sparking debates, controversies, even fears, but that's to be expected. Every time a new idea, or in this case, an old idea rediscovered, challenges the status quo, there's resistance. What's remarkable, though, is how resilient Islam has been in the face of that resistance. For decades, it was targeted with propaganda, misrepresentation, outright hostility. Yet, here we are, with Islam still growing faster than any other religion in the world. That resilience isn't accidental. It's rooted in the fact that people, at a deep level, can't ignore the truth when they encounter it. You can distort it, you can attack it, but when someone experiences it authentically, it's almost impossible to deny. And that brings us to the future. What does it mean if this trend continues? Imagine a world where more and more people adopt Islam's discipline, its moral clarity, its sense of community, its focus on family, its rejection of destructive habits. That doesn't just change individuals, it changes societies. It challenges economic systems built on exploitation. It questions political systems built on corruption. It reshapes cultural values from the ground up. We're talking about a shift that could redefine what progress means, what success means, what civilization itself means. And if billions of people are already aligned with this system, the momentum is only going to grow. And maybe that's the real reason Islam is spreading so fast. It's not just a religion, it's a blueprint for living. It offers answers to every level of human existence, the individual, the family, the community, the nation, and even humanity as a whole. It doesn't separate the spiritual from the practical. It weaves them together into one seamless whole. In a world obsessed with compartmentalizing everything, Islam brings unity, and that unity of belief, of practice, of purpose is something the modern world desperately needs. When you really sit with it, it makes sense why billions are embracing Islam. It's not about trends or fads. It's not about cultural pressure. It's about truth meeting need. Humanity is searching for meaning, and Islam provides it. Humanity is searching for discipline, and Islam demands it. Humanity is searching for connection, and Islam builds it. Humanity is searching for certainty, and Islam embodies it. The more people encounter it, the more they realize it's not just an option. It's the answer. So here we are, in a moment of history that future generations might look back on and say, That was the turning point. Time when people, burned out from the failures of modernity, rediscovered something ancient, something timeless, something that gave them exactly what they were searching for. That's why billions are accepting Islam, not because they're being forced, not because it's fashionable, but because deep down they know it's the truth. And once you know the truth, you can't unknow it, you can't walk away from it, you can only embrace it. And that's what's happening right now all over the world.